ॐ दक्षिणस्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ता स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशववामन कृष्णपाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञान गुरुः सद्यो जात शङ्कर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्. Now the Guru is talking to Shishya about Atma Anatma Vivechanam or Atma Anatma Viveka. And for this, here, for this process of Atma Anatma Viveka, he already said that, like I separate a munja ishika, a munja grass, from its, the ishika or the tender stem within a munja grass, how I have to separate it carefully from that prickly layer of the cover around that, tender grass. In the same way, Atma Anatma Viveka has to be done. And here, for Anatma, Bhagwan Shankaracharya is taking the Panchakosha Viveka. As I said in the previous session, that Taittiriya Upanishad talks about Panchakosha Viveka. See, different Upanishads, different Shrutis talk about different prakriyas. What is a prakriya? A methodology of teaching. That is, Shariratraya Viveka is one. Taking the three bodies, the Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira as the Anatma, which was already done by Bhagwan Shankaracharya in the previous session. Then there is one more prakriya. Prakriya means a methodology or a module of teaching where the same body, Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, is divided into 5 layers. It is as though the Atma is covered by 5 layered Anatma. And this 5 layered Anatma is described in the form of the 5 koshas. It is called as the Annamaya Kosha, which is the gross physical body. The Sthula Shariram is called as Annamaya Kosha. And we already saw that in the last session, how the Annamaya Kosha was described as an Atma. It is said that this gross physical body or this Annamaya Kosha is called Annamaya Kosha because it is born out of food. The food eaten by the parents gives rise to this fetus, and this fetus grows in the womb of the mother with the help of the food. And when the child comes out also, it grows with the help of food. Therefore, annena vardhate. This shariram is annena vardhate. Therefore, it is called as annamaya. So that which is born out of food, that which grows because of food, that which is sustained by food, and ultimately that which gets destroyed and merges with the food only into the food cycle later, that is called as Annamaya. Can I, the Atma, be Annamaya Kosha? No, it was seen in the last session. Atma cannot be called Annamaya Kosha. Why? Because this Annamaya Kosha is gross physical matter. Atma has no matter whatsoever in it. Atma is non matter, pure consciousness. Whereas this Annamaya Kosha is pure matter principle which is born out of food and sustained by food and gets resolved. This body gets resolved into ultimately food. And what kind of a body is this? Aniyata Swabhava. Jata Kshana Kshana Gunaha. Every moment it is changing. It has got different attributes every moment, and it changes. Aniyata swabhavaha. Aniyata means that which is so unpredictable. This physical body is unpredictable. We have all seen that. Today I am all right, tomorrow I am not all right. 1 year back, the physical body was perfectly healthy, and now I find that the physical body is riddled with so many rogas. Maybe 1 year back, a particular physical body was alive, and today that particular physical body is not even alive. Therefore, it is aniyata swabhava, that which keeps changing. All the time, this physical body is changing. It is vikari. Therefore, I, the Atma, cannot be this vikari physical body or Annamaya Kosha. Not only that, it is seen by me and the others also. Therefore, it is drishyam. So, physical body or Annamaya Kosha being a matter principle, number one. Secondly, constantly changing vikaritvat. Thirdly, it is an object of my perception, drishyatvat. Therefore, I, the Atma, cannot be the Annamaya Kosha. Of course, the Annamaya Kosha depends on its existence on me, the Atma. Therefore, since Annamaya Kosha does not have an independent existence of its own and depends on me, the Atma, for its sentience, therefore Annamaya Kosha becomes the Anatma. It is one of the layers. So, with gross physical body called Annamaya Kosha, the gross physical body is over now. Now, Bhagwan comes to the next three layers which are a part of Sukshma Sharira. We have seen all this in Tattva Bodha. If we read Tattva Bodha, we are aware of what the Sukshma Sharira is. The Sukshma Sharira contains the prana, the Sukshma Sharira contains the mind, the Sukshma Sharira contains the buddhi and all the indriyas. Therefore, Sukshma Sharira is a conglomerate of the five sense organs of perception, jnanendriyas, five karmendriyas, prana, manaha, and buddhi. That is what the Tattva Bodha also said. The 17, parted is Sukshma Sharira. So here also, Bhagwan Shankaracharya says that here the Sukshma Sharira, according to the Shruti, according to our scriptures, the Sukshma Sharira is divided into three layers. What is that? The first layer of Sukshma Sharira is called as Pranamaya Kosha. This Pranamaya Kosha is immediately interior to the Annamaya Kosha. And as I said in the last session, it is like these Channapatna dolls where you can open one doll and you will find a similar structure inside. Like that, we may have 5 or 6 layers of dolls being present here. Similarly, it is said that this Annamaya Kosha has got a particular shape and a particular size. So the next layers go according to the same shape, they go according to the same size. So the Sukshma Sharira doesn't jet out of the Sthula Sharira. So the Sukshma Sharira, the Pranamaya, the Manomaya, the Vijnanamaya, which are also the division of Sukshma Sharira, they do not go out of the Sthula Sharira. Annamaya Kosha is pervaded by these three sheets. What is the immediate sheet? Pervading internally. Internally, the entire Annamaya is pervaded in the same shape, in the same size as that of Annamaya. And what is this called as? This is called as the Pranamaya Kosha. If Annamaya Kosha is the anatomical sheet, anatomical body, Pranamaya Kosha is the physiological body, because all the physiological functions of the body are taken care of by this Pranamaya Kosha. So earlier in the 165th verse, which we completed in the last session, we saw Karmendriyaihi Panchabhihi Achintoyam. That means this pranamaya kosha, achintoyam, means it is, achintaha, it is endowed, it is associated, it comes along with. So this is what is called anchitaha, panchabhihi anchitaha, panchabhiranchitaha, not achintaha, panchabhiranchitaha. Anchitaha means that which is endowed with or associated with all the five karmendriyas. And also what it is, prano bhavet pranamaya pranamaya tu kosha. This kosha is called as pranamaya because it is associated with all the physiological pranas and also associated with the 5 karmendriyas. Then yena atmavan annamayo anupurnaha. This annamaya kosha is as though completely filled by this pranamaya kosha. It is as though internally it is filled and pervaded by this pranamaya kosha, and all the activity actually happens. All the activity is planned, and all the activity along with the karmendriyas happens in pranamaya kosha, but the pranamaya kosha uses the annamaya kosha to execute all the actions. So here it says pravartate asau sakala kriyasu. Sakala kriyasu pravartate. All the kriyas, all the activities, all the actions start in the pranamaya, and the pranamaya kosha executes these actions by taking the help of the gross physical body or annamaya. Now, can the Atma be the pranamaya kosha? Can I be the pranamaya? Can I be that kosha? The very fact that I say kosha, it means it is something which is jada. See, let us imagine a kosha means a person wears a banyan, okay? Over that, he wears a shirt. Over that, he may wear a sweater. Over that, he may wear a coat. Now, what have we found? There are four layers in which this person has dressed himself. So, the coat is also of the same size and shape as the body, and the sweater is also of the same shape and size as the body, as the torso, and inside whatever clothes also he is wearing are of the same size and same shape as the physical body. Similarly, we have to consider all these koshas inwardly. If Annamaya kosha has this particular size and shape, this whole Pranamaya kosha is as though pervading and filling the entire Annamaya kosha. It is almost in the same shape, filling. Like I gave an example, if I fill a bottle with water, or if there is space within the bottle, that space is almost of the size and shape of the bottle. That water which I put in a bottle is almost of the shape and in the size of that bottle itself, though it does not have any shape of its own. Similarly, the Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, being the Sukshma Sharira, do not have a definite shape of their own. But this entire Sukshma Sharira, the first layer of which is called as Pranamaya Kosha. The entire Sukshma Sharira is divided into three koshas: Pranamaya, the physiological sheath; Manomaya, the mental sheath; and the Vijnanamaya, the intellectual sheath. The same Sukshma Sharira. And since this Sukshma Sharira does not have a shape of its own, it takes the shape of the physical body. Therefore, the Pranamaya Kosha also resembles the Annamaya Kosha, and it is where all the actions have started. Now, can I be this Pranamaya Kosha? That is what is answered in the next verse. In the 166th verse, it is answered that I, the Atma, cannot be the Pranamaya Kosha. What is the logic involved here? Same logic as that we saw in Annamaya. In all these five koshas, the same logic will be talked about. All the koshas are matter principle, number one. All the koshas are vikari, constantly changing, number two. All the koshas, the five koshas are jada, number three. All the koshas are nothing but the drishyam or the object of my perception. Therefore, none of the koshas I can be. I am not any of the five koshas. I am that kosha vilakshana, pancha kosha vilakshana atma. This is how the teaching is going to be. So whatever we saw in the Annamaya kosha, the same logic, the same argument will be talked about for all the further koshas that are going to be talked about. So here he says in the verse number 166, he says, नैवात्मापि प्राणमयो वायुविकारः गन्ता गन्ता वायुवत् अन्तर्बहिरेषः यस्मात् किञ्चित् क्वापि न वेत्ति इष्टम् अनिष्टं स्वं वा अन्यं वा किञ्चन नित्यं परतन्त्रः. So he says, I cannot be this pranamaya kosha. Why? Naiva atma api pranamaya. The atma or I cannot be the pranamaya. Why? because it is Vayu Vikaraha. Vayu Vikaraha. It is a Vikara, or this is made up of Vayu. And what is Vayu? Vayu is a element. Vayu is a matter principle. And Pranamaya Kosha is a Vayu Vikara. That is why it is called Maya. There is a pratyaya, there is a thing in Sanskrit language called Mayat pratyaya. That means it is a vikara. It is something which is changing. Annamaya is Anna Vikaraha. Pranamaya is Vayu Vikaraha. Since it is a Vayu Vikaraha, it is something which is a changing thing brought about from the Vayu. I cannot be that Atma. Ganta aganta Vayuvad antar bahihi eshaha. Okay, Ganta antaha. It goes in. Bahihi agantaha, it comes out. So, what is this? It is continuously moving. Can Atma move? Can Atma come out or come in? We have already seen that in Bhagavad Gita. Atma is all pervading. It cannot move from one place to the other. There is no movement possible in Atma. Therefore, this Vayu, this Prana, I can see I am breathing in. Antaha Gantaha. Bahihi Agantaha. It keeps coming in and going out, coming in and going out. If this is the Vayu which is coming in and going out, which is called as Prana, then how can I be that Prana? Then he says, Yasmat kinchit kvapi na veti ishtam anishtam. This Pranamaya Kosha is not affected by either conducive situations or non conducive situations. It may be sukha situation, it may be dukkha situation. It may be very hot, it may be cold, it may be uncomfortable, whatever it is, the prana keeps going in and coming out, going in and coming out. The pranamaya kosha does all its activities according to whatever it has to do. Whether there is ishtam or anishtam, it does not have any kind of an ishta anishta for itself, that I should not now be breathing because it is anishta, I should be breathing now because it is ishta. That something is not there at all. And in the last line he says, Swam va anyam va kinchana nityam paratantraha. It is always paratantra. It always depends upon others. See, one interesting thing I can tell you, that we feel that when death takes place, the prana goes out of the physical body. The entire Sukshma Sharira goes out of the physical body. Therefore, the prana has also gone out of the physical body. And the common thing to say a person is dead is to say that the prana has gone out. That means the person is dead. That means, does this prana have the independence to cause the death or the life of an individual? Is it independent? Is prana independent in giving life to the individual, or is it independent in taking away the life and giving death to the individual? No, it is not. That is why it is called as paratantra. Then what does it depend upon? It depends upon prarabdha. Supposing my life, is 70 years. 70 years is what is taken from the point of view of the time of our knowledge here, whatever time principle. But how is the lifespan of a person decided? When does a Vikara, Pranamaya goes out and never comes? What do we say? He breathed his last. That's what we say. So what is the meaning of that? Breathed his last means the breath went out and never came in again. It was just he breathed out and never breathed in again. Now, if prana is independent, then the prana can decide as to how long I am going to keep this particular human being alive. But the prana is not independent. How long the prana should function in a person and keep this person alive depends upon the prarabdha. And the prarabdha clock is ticking. And what is that prarabdha clock in the prana which keeps ticking? It is said that one breathing in and one breathing out, one inhalation and one exhalation is considered as one breath. Breathing in once, breathing out once is considered as one breath. And we have heard of this Udana Vayu, I said reversing prana. Udana Vayu is the prana which really takes care of the leaving of the physical body at the time of death. So, what is this Udana? This Udana prana is the clock, and the Udana prana starts clicking countdown. One breath, Udana prana clicking one tick backwards. So, with every breath, the Udana prana is tick, tick, tick. It is going backwards. From the minute one is born, the process of death has started. The Udana prana, the Udana Vayu starts clicking, ticking from the time of the birth. And then what is the time sense of this Udana Vayu? Prarabdha. It is said that according to this particular person's prarabdha, this particular person has to breathe so many times. One breath in and one breath out is breathing once. So a person has to breathe in so many millions or crores of times, and that much the Udana clock will keep going one count, one count, one count, backwards, 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 backwards. And when the Udana clock has ticked its last, it exactly coincides with the end of one's prarabdha. When the prarabdha has ended, the Udana clock has come to the zero and the prana never comes back again. That is why here he says, Pranaha nityam paratantraha. It is always paratantra. It is not independent. Prana cannot decide the life of a person. It is decided by the clicking of the Udana Vayu, the Udana Prana. That's why Udana Prana does not have any function generally. Only in cases of vomiting, loose motions, and things like that, when reversing activity has to take place, coughing, reversing activity, or at the time of death, Udana Prana is active. So every click of the Udana Prana is one prarabdha worked out, one prarabdha worked out, one prarabdha worked out. Therefore, it is said here is Swam va anyam va kinchana nityam paratantraha. It is always paratantra. It depends upon the prarabdha. It is not sufficient enough by itself to take care of the life of a person. Therefore, being a Vayu Vikara, being something which is coming in and going out, constantly changing, I am aware of my breath moving in and moving out. Others are also aware of my breathing. That is why the doctors can understand and make out that I am alive, because the prana is moving in and moving out. Since it is vikari, since it is Vayu Vikara, it is Jada, it is Paratantra Drishyam. It is something which I can observe, which I can see. Therefore, I am not the Pranamaya Kosha. Then, with this, the Pranamaya Kosha is also over. Next, the second layer of Sukshma Sharira comes, what is called as the mental sheath or the Manomaya Kosha. What is this Manomaya Kosha? Antakarana itself, we have seen that there is something called as internal instrument or Antakarana. The Antakarana is divided into Manaha and Buddhi, mind and intellect. So the mind is taken to be the Manomaya Kosha. The mind is taken to be the Manomaya Kosha. And what is this Manomaya Kosha? That is what is going to be talked about in the next verse, 167th verse. It is going to be talked about Manomaya. Let us see what it talks about. ज्ञानेन्द्रियाणि च मनश्च मनोमय स्यात् कोशो ममाहमिति वस्तु विकल्पहेतुः संज्ञादिभेदकलनाकलितो बलीयान् तत्पूर्वकोशभिपूर्य विजृम्भते यः. Just like Pranamaya Kosha pervaded the entire Annamaya Kosha from inside, this Manomaya Kosha is also Anyaha Antaraha, Anyontara Kosha. Anyontara means what? That which is subtler than the Pranamaya, that which is internal to Pranamaya, and that which pervades the Pranamaya. So, Tat Purva Kosham Abhipurya Vijrambate, last line. So, this Manomaya, what does it do? It literally pervades the entire Pranamaya Kosha, being subtler and being inside the Pranamaya Kosha. Therefore, Tat Purva Kosham means which Purva Kosham? Pranamaya Kosham Abhipurya. Having completed this Pranamaya Kosha, Vijrambhate, it shines, Yaha, this Manomaya Kosha. So, what is this Manomaya Kosha? It is a combination of the Jnanendriyani along with the mind. Just like Pranamaya Kosha was Karmendriyani with the Prana, the Manomaya Kosha is all the organs of perception. So he says in the first line, Jnanendriyani cha manascha manomaya syat. All the five jnanendriyas. What are they? The shrotru, okay, then tvak, then our eyes, and then our rasanendriya and granendriya. Shrotram, then tvak, then chakshuhu, rasanendriya, granendriya. The organs of perception in the form of the ears, and the feeling, skin, and the eyes, and the tasting tongue, and also the smell, the sense of smell. All these are got by all these actions are done by the jnanendriyas. The five jnanendriyas are called as the jnana indriyani, jnanaya indriyani. These indriyas are meant for knowledge. These five indriyas feel or they experience, they go and fall on the world of objects outside, and they give me these signals as to what they have seen. Therefore, jnanaya indriyani iti jnanendriyani. For the sake of the knowledge of the mind and intellect, these jnanendriyani, they are going to pick up the senses, pick up the stimuli from the outside world, and they are going to transfer them to the manomaya kosha and vijnanamaya kosha. Therefore, this antakarana, which is divided into, it's a very subtle difference. Manomaya and vijnanamaya, they are not very different. Manomaya is the mind because it has got certain different kinds of thoughts, vrittis, and Vijnanamaya is the intellect, the buddhi, which has got little different types of vrittis or thought. We have already seen in Tattva Bodha, the Manomaya Kosha has Sankalpatmika, Vikalpatmika thoughts. It makes a Sankalpa and then it doubts, it makes a Vikalpa. Have I locked the house or not? I think I have locked the house. No, 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 I think I'm not very sure. I don't think I have. I think I should go and see. So this kind of sankalpa vikalpa, yes, I think I have done it. No, 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 I think I have not done it. I think this is the thing. No, no, I don't think this is the thing. This is what is called as sankalpatmaka vikalpatmaka vrittis. They belong to the mind. The emotions belong to the mind. Correct? The emotions, raga, dvesha, security, insecurity, all these belong to the mind. So the emotions belong to the mind, doubt belongs to the mind, and vacillating, wavering, sankalpa, vikalpa belongs to the mind, and also the capacity to differentiate various names and forms also belongs to the mind. That is what is going to be told here in this verse. He says, Jnanendriyani cha manascha manomaya hasyat. The five jnanendriyas along with the mind, these two together are called as the Manomaya Koshaha. Koshaha mama aham iti vastu vikalpa hetuhu. That means what? This is the mind, this is the kosha, the mind, which differentiate between I, aham, and mama. This is mine, this is not mine, this belongs to me, this doesn't belong to me. What is this? Is this something which I know? Is this something which I don't know? So all these things, this kosha, mama aham iti, I and mine. I and mine. Not I, not mine. What is it that understands I and mine? It is the Manomaya Kosha. Vastu Vikalpa Hetuhu. It is the mind which is capable of dividing the entire world into I, the subject, and object. Vikalpa means that the subject I, the knower I, and the object, the known, the druk I and the drishyam world. So it is the mind which says, I see everything. It is the mind which says, this is I, this is not I. It is the mind which says, I am the body, I am the mind, I am the sense complex. It is the mind which says, it is the world. the world is Satyam. It is the mind which says this is a pot, this is not a glass. This is called as a pot, this is called as a glass. The name of this person is A or B or whatever it is. This is not the name of a person. Have I done something properly? I don't think I have done it. Let me check it whether I have done all these. The mind is the one whose thoughts are able to distinguish subject object vikalpa. It is the thoughts of the mind which are able to distinguish between I and mine. It is the mind, the thoughts in the mind which are able to name the objects and distinguish and differentiate the objects. So he says, Mama aham iti vastu vikalpa hetuhu and sanyadi bheda kalana kalitaha. That means what? Sanyadi. Sanya means names. The mind is able to differentiate between two names. The mind is able to differentiate between two forms. The mind is the one which says that, oh, this person is Sudha, this person is, X, somebody else. It is the one, the thoughts, the mind is able to really distinguish. Sanyadi bheda kalana kalitaha. Sanya means names. The bhedas in the names. Sanyadi bheda kalana. It is able to really differentiate between two different objects, differentiate between the two names, when it is active, when the mind is active. In sleep, the mind is inactive, so I am not able to really say anything about it. But in the Jagrat Avastha, in the Swapna Avastha also, the mind is capable of distinguishing and differentiating various names and various forms. So he says, Sanyadi Bheda Kalana Kalitaha. Not only that, it is Baliyan. Baliyan means what? It is very, very powerful. The mind is very powerful. The mind can literally take me for a ride. When I sit for meditation, if the mind is not able to be concentrated, it can take me anywhere. It is the mind which draws the entire physical body wherever it wants. It is the mind which makes the body go after something. It is the emotions in the mind which make the body go after something. So it is Baliyan. That is why in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna told it is Baliyan, Dhradavat, Pramati, Balavat Dhradaha. This mind, this Manaha, Chanchalam hi Mana Krishna, Pramati, Balavat, Dhradaha. It is definitely Balavat, it is Baliyan. It can literally, like a storm, the mind can take me away. So it is Baliyan. And Tat Purva Kosham Abhipurya Vijrambate Yaha. This mind sheath or the Manomaya Kosha fills the entire Annamaya and Pranamaya from inside. It is the Manomaya actually which differentiates between the things and makes me run after these things. And with the help of the Pranamaya, it executes the action. If there is a doubt in my mind, if I have to check on the doubt, then the mind vrittis stimulate the pranamaya executes the action using the help of the body. That means what? All these layers are involved in executing a particular action. So, is this possible that I am this manomaya? Because this manomaya looks much more sentient than pranamaya, and this manomaya looks as if it is capable of independently thinking. It looks as though it is capable of making differences between different names and forms. Does it mean that I am this atma, atma? Am I manomaya? Am I this mind? That is what many people say. Atma is a body, some people say. Atma is prana, that many people say. Many philosophers say Atma is not different from mind, Atma is mind. And some philosophers say Atma is nothing but intellect. Atma is nothing but Prakriti or Maya. But here, what Bhagwan Shankaracharya says is, depending upon what the Shruti says, I, the Atma, is none of the five koshas. I'm in the third kosha now. Annamaya we have already dealt with and said why I am not Annamaya. Same reasons we gave to say why I am not the Pranamaya. Now, I, the Atma, am not even Manomaya. Why? The same reasons are given here as to why I am not the Manomaya. And that comes in the next verse, in the 183rd verse, 183, verse number 183. Here he says, मनोमयो नापि भवेत् परात्मा ह्याद्यन्तवत्वात् परिणामि भावात् दुःखात्मकत्वाद् विषयत्वहेतोः दृष्टा हि दृश्यात्मतया न दृष्टः. So am I Manomaya? Is this Atma Manomaya Kosha? It cannot be. The same reasons have to be talked about. Manomaya is Vikari. It has got a beginning, it changes constantly, and it stops. The vrittis or the thoughts of the mind are just like frames of a camera, like the frames of a camera. One vritti is there, it is the frame of the camera. Next, immediately the frame changes, one more thing comes. Like that, every vritti means thought, every vritti, every thought in the mind is like a changing camera frame. Therefore, the mind is constantly changing. The emotions are changing, the doubts are changing, and at every situation, the mind is constantly changing with regards to the thoughts. Samshayas and vikalpas are different. The subject object divisions are different in different situations. Names and forms, distinguishing and distinguishing names and forms, differentiation is different at different times. Emotions are happening. Today, I'm very happy right at this moment, but maybe in another half an hour, there can be change. Maha changes. Mind is the one which is so very chanchala, constantly changing, continuously changing. So he says, Manomayo napi bhavet paratma. Paratma or Paramatma or I the Atma, this Pratyagatma, I the Atma cannot be the Manomaya Kosha. Why I the Atma cannot be the Manomaya Kosha? He says, Adyantavatvat Parinami Bhavat. The mind, the thoughts in the mind begin, they go through changes and they end. No thought is continuous. No thought is all the time there. There is only one thought, the I, aham. I know every thought of the mind. There is this Sakshi Chaitanya Atma which lights up every thought, but the thought itself is temporary. The thoughts are coming, the thoughts are going. So there are parinami bhavat, there are parinamis, constantly changing. Adyantavatvat, the mind begins. When the person wakes up, the mind begins. Throughout the waking time, the mind has different thoughts, different emotions, different vikalpas, different doubts it has got. And when it goes into a swapna prapancha, this mind itself projects all those vasanas which have been accumulated from the memories. This mind is the one which projects a different swapna sharira. And in deep sleep, it is the very same mind which is incapable of perceiving anything. So the mind is constantly changing. In all the three avasthas, the mind is constantly changing. It has an adi. It begins when I wake up and it ends when I sleep. Again begins when I wake up. Changes constantly throughout my Jagrat and Swapnavastha. Therefore, this constantly changing mind with constantly changing thoughts and this Adyantavantaha, every thought having its beginning, having its changes, having its ends. Therefore, I cannot be the mind. The mind is represented by the thoughts that arise in the mind. Therefore, I cannot be either the thoughts arising in the mind, nor can I be the mind itself. And what is it? Dukkhatmakatvad vishayatva hetoho. Dukkhatmakatvat. It is dukkha hetuhu. The mind is the one which is constantly moving from one thing to the other, and it is dukkha hetuhu. Mind is not sukha hetu. That means, is there no sukha at all? Does the mind not experience any happiness at all? Vedanta says, yes, it is a precursor to the dukkha. Whatever happiness it attains, later on we'll see when we come to Anandamaya as to from where actually the happiness comes. Actually, happiness doesn't come from Manomaya. Actual happiness comes from somewhere else, but temporarily the mind is reflecting this happiness. This happiness is a temporary happiness. It is not something which is all the time there. Therefore, dukkhatmakatvad, it is dukkhatmakatvad, it is there. Vishayatva hetoho, It is something which is the hetu for Vishayatva. It is the hetu because of which I can differentiate the Vishayas which give me happiness and unhappiness. Drishta hi drishyam atmataya na drishtaha. I am the drishta of the mind also. The Atma is the seer of the mind also. Therefore, what is the mind? It is drishyam. It is the object of my perception. I can clearly make out, isn't it? I can make out my moods. I can make out my unhappiness. I can make out my doubts. I can make out that my mind is running here and there. Nobody has to tell me. It can be even observed by others also, that you are depressed today, you're not talking today, you're looking very unhappy today. My emotions can be felt by other people also. So Manomaya Kosha is a drishyam because it is available to me also for perception, and sometimes my thoughts are available for others also in the form of my moods, in the form of my emotions. Maybe they may not be able to understand exactly what I'm thinking, but at least my moods and my emotions many times are very very obvious to the others also. So drishta hi drishya atmataya na drishtaha. I am the drishta. I means who? The atma is the drishta, the one who is the seer, whereas this manomaya is the drishyam. It is drishyam. Then with this, the manomaya is also negated as anatma. So we have seen here now the Annamaya Kosha is negated as Atma. It is, Annamaya Kosha, Atma is not Annamaya, Annamaya is Anatma. Atma is not Pranamaya, Pranamaya is Anatma. Atma is not Manomaya, Manomaya or the mental sheath, the emotional sheath is also Anatma. Now, the last sheath in the Sukshma Sharira is called as the Vijnanamaya. Vijnanamaya is the Buddhi or the intellect. As I said, the Buddhi and the mind cannot be very, very easily differentiated because Manaha and Buddhi are nothing but the functional aspects of the Anthakarana. Antakarana has the manaha and the buddhi. Depending upon the thoughts, it is said that this thought is the thought of the mind or this thought is the thought of the intellect. We have seen that Sankalpa Vikalpatmaka Vritti is Manomaya Kosha. Nishchayatmika thought, I decide. A decisive thought means the buddhi. Let us take that same example. Have I locked the house or not? The manomaya will keep on fluctuating and vacillating. Yes, I have done. No, I have not done. Yes, I have done. No, I have not done. But it will never come to a conclusion. Here, the buddhi will come to a conclusion. Since I am not sure of whether I have locked the house or not, I will go back and check. This Nishchayatmika Buddhi, this Nishchayatmika Vritti is the Vritti or the thought process of the intellectual sheath or the Vijnanamaya Kosha. The Vijnanamaya Kosha is called Vijnanamaya because it is something which is a knower. It is the one which is able to understand. Buddhi is the one which is able to know. And what does this layer contain? What does this Buddhi or what you call as the Vijnanamaya Kosha or Buddhi Kosha, Vijnanamaya, what does it contain? Again, he says here in the verse number 185, verse number, sorry, 184, verse number 184. In the verse number 184 in the original, what does he say? बुद्धिन्द्रियैः सार्धं सवृत्तिः कर्तृलक्षणः विज्ञानमयकोशः स्यात् पुंसः संसारकारणम्. So what is this Vijnanamaya Kosha? We have come to the fourth Kosha already. What is this Vijnanamaya Kosha? He says, talks about the Vijnanamaya. He says, Buddhihi buddhindriyaihi sardham. Buddhi Indriyas are also another name for Jnana Indriyas, Jnanendriyas. Jnanendriyas are also called as Buddhi Indriyas. Now, the Manomaya and Vijnanamaya, being very subtly different from each other, The Manomaya is also supported by the Jnanendriyas. The Vijnanamaya or the Buddhi is also supported by the Jnanendriyas. Therefore, he says, Buddhihi Buddhindriyaihi Sardham. This buddhi or the intellect which is endowed with or which is associated with the indriyas, buddhi indriyas, sardham means associated with. Savritti kartri lakshanaha. This is the Vijnanamaya Kosha is the doer. Manomaya is not the doer. It only goes on vacillating. It only goes on thinking. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Should this be done? Should that be done? Ultimately, what decides that should be done or should not be done? Definitely. So either I do it or I don't do it. So it is that vritti in this Vijnanamaya Kosha which is Kartrilakshanaha in the first line itself. Kartrilakshanaha. It belongs to the, it is of the nature of Karta. So when I say I have done it, I am going to do it, I have to do it, it is the Buddhi which has decided to be a doer. Therefore, in all our transaction, the mind gets all the resources or inputs from the sense organs, and the same inputs are projected or handed over to the buddhi, and the buddhi, along with the buddhi indriyas, decides upon what is to be done. Therefore, Vijnanamaya Kosha is the Kartri Lakshanaha. It has got the Lakshanas of the Kartru. And this is called as Vijnanamaya Kosha Hasyat. So, who is the Vijnanamaya? The doer. Not simply the one who imagines, not simply the one who emotes. In buddhi, in intellect, there are no emotions. There is no vacillation. If there is any vacillation, doubt, should I do this or not do this, it is the mind. If there are emotions, it is predominantly the mind. But when I am certain, there is a certainty that this should be done, this should not be done. When there is this certainty that is there, this is the vritti or the thought arising in the what? In the Vijnanamaya Kosha. So buddhihi buddhindriyaihi sardham. The buddhi along with the jnanendriyas savrittihi kartra lakshanaha. It has got the lakshana or it is of the nature of the doer karta. Vijnanamaya kosha hasyat. This is called as the Vijnanamaya kosha pumsaha samsara karanam. This is the samsara karanam because the decisions I make depend upon what? My previous experiences. My previous experiences in this life and some of the impressions or samskaras which have carried from the previous lives. This buddhi makes certain decisions, but the decision that this buddhi has made may not be the right decision. Because many times later on, I will say that I had made this decision, but unfortunately, that was not the right decision. I should not have done it. I should have done it in the other way. Maybe this was not the way of doing it. Why am I saying that? Because the buddhi itself has taken a decision at that moment based upon its previous experience and the present circumstances. But the decision taken by the buddhi need not be the right decision. The buddhi itself says, I am this body. I am sure. Who are you? I am sure I am this body. I am sure this world belongs to me. I am sure this person belongs to me. I am sure this house belongs to me. Though the mind is having those ideas, the surety or the definitiveness that I am this body, mind, sense complex is ultimately that decision or that vritti or that thought process which has come out of the Vijnanamaya Kosha. So it is Kartrilakshanaha and Vijnanamaya Kosha Pumsaha Samsara Karanam. It is what? It is the Samsara Karanam. It is what makes or gives rise to the dukkha or samsara for a person. Because many times that's why I'm afraid of taking any decisions. I don't make decisions. Making any decisions is, I always wait for somebody else to make decisions for me because I know that I may not be right always. And many times I am not able to take the responsibility of the decisions I have made. And therefore, that is why many of us try to avoid or evade making decisions. We let somebody else make decisions for us so that we can blame that person later if something goes wrong. But then the onus of making the decision of whatever the buddhi has decided is on me, which itself is a great cause for samsara. So it is a part of anatma, it is a cause for samsara for the human being. However intelligent a person may be, a person's intellect is limited. That's what it says. The mind is limited, the intellect is limited. If I have to take a decision for 5 years ahead, I cannot. I don't have the sufficient inputs. Whatever I know of today and whatever I have gained from my past experience, I may project something and make a decision. But the buddhi is also temporary. It is not something which can see far ahead. It is not possible. Therefore, the buddhi is a cause of samsara. But one thing is, this Vijnanamaya kosha is a very, very subtle kosha, and it can reflect the consciousness and form the reflection of Atma in itself, called as the Chidabhasa. We have seen that in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. That is what is going to be told in the next verse, 185th verse. That is what is going to be told. He says here, Anuvrajat chitta pratibimba shaktihi विज्ञान संज्ञ प्रकृतेर विकारः ज्ञान क्रियावान अहमित्यजस्त्रम देहेन्द्रियादिष्वभिमन्यते भृशम्. He says one thing, because the buddhi is the subtlest part of the Sukshma Sharira, this buddhi or Vijnanamaya kosha acts as a perfect reflecting medium. And the light of consciousness is reflected in this buddhi, and the reflection of this consciousness, the reflected consciousness in the buddhi, is called as Chidabhasa. And this reflected consciousness, Chidabhasa, along with the buddhi, is what is called as Ahankara or Jiva, which we have already seen. This Chidabhasa, the reflection of consciousness in the buddhi, attains an individuality, and I call myself I, and that I becomes the Ahankara. So, this reflected consciousness along with the Buddhi is called as either the Ahankara or it is called as the Jiva. Many people say the small I, big I. Let us not say that. Let us say it is the ultimately that is the Jiva, I can call it. That gives me that individuality, ahamiti. I am this body, mind, sense, complexity, individuality. I am different from everything else, iti, individuality. This particular individuality is what is God, because this Vijnanamaya Kosha is a very subtle layer in which the Atma, the consciousness or this Chaitanya, Atma Chaitanya is reflected. So he says, Anuvraja Chitta Pratibimba Shaktihi. Pratibimba Shaktihi. This is a reflecting medium, buddhi being a very subtle thing. See, I look at myself in the mirror, I can see my reflection. Why? The reflecting surface, the mirror is extremely subtle. Even in a steel plate, if the steel plate is very bright, if I hold the steel plate, I can see my face. May not be as clear as in the mirror, but still I can see my face. So, whichever surface is subtle, whichever surface is very, very subtle and very, very clear, it can reflect whatever comes in front of it. Atma being all pervasive, Atma being everywhere, wherever there is a buddhi, in every jiva, wherever there is a Vijnanamaya kosha, there is a reflection of this Atma Chaitanya. So, Anuvraja Chit Pratibimba Shaktihi. Chit Pratibimba Shaktihi. Anuvraja. Following this capacity to reflect the Chit or the Sakshi Chaitanya Atma, Chit Pratibimba Shaktihi. It has got the capacity, it has got the Shakti to reflect the Chit or Atma, and following this, it is called as Vijnana Sanyaha Prakriter Vikaraha. Even the reflection is false. Correct? Reflection is not the original. Reflection is false. It depends upon the reflecting medium. If I stand in front of a mirror, the reflection is different. If I stand in front of a very, very, a stainless steel surface, the reflection of my face is different. Therefore, the reflection depends upon the reflecting surface. Therefore, the reflection also is false. Chidabhasa is also mithya. Because the reflecting surface is buddhi, the reflection of Atma in this buddhi is also not the real. Therefore, he says here, Vijnana Sanyaha. This reflecting medium with the reflection of the Atma, Chit Pratibimba, is called as the Vijnana Sanyaha. It is called as the Vijnanamaya. It is Prakritehe Vikaraha. It is the Vikara of Prakriti. It is not the original, it is a vikara of the Prakriti. It is the Sukshma Sharira. What is Sukshma Sharira? It is vikara of Sukshma Panchabhutas. The Sukshma Panchabhutas have joined together to form the Antakarna. And Buddhi is a part of Antakarna, so it is Prakriti Vikaraha. That means what? It is a modification of matter principle. Prakriti Vikaraha. Jnana ahamiti ajastram. Jnana the one who is capable of knowing, the one who is a doer. After knowing something, this Vijnanamaya Kosha is able to take decisions, a Nishchayatmika Vritti, and become a doer. Jnana ahamiti ajasram, and it calls itself I. It gets an individuality. It is a Vijnanamaya Kosha along with the reflection of Sakshi Chaitanya Atma, which is called as the Jiva or Ahankara, which says I. Who am I here? The I here that is referred to by the Vijnanamaya is the Ahankara, not the Sakshi Chaitanya Atma. There are two I's when I say I. The I, which is the Ahankara, is also I. Am I that I? Or I am the original Sakshi Chaitanya Atma I? And what does Vedanta tell me? You are not this Ahankara I. The Ahankara I is a mere reflection of you. You are the original, the Bimba Chaitanya, the Sakshi Chaitanya Atma. You are that real I. Whereas this I which you think you are is nothing but a Pratibimba, Chit Pratibimba. And the Vijnanamaya thinks aham, this aham is nothing but this ahankara. Ahamiti ajasram. Dehendriyadishu abhimanyate. It has got an identification with the Deha and Indriyas. This Vijnanamaya Kosha is the one who takes itself to be the real, and it has got an Abhimana. Deha Indriyadishu Abhimanyante. The one which has got an Abhimana in the Deha, Indriya, Mana, etc. And this is the Vijnanamaya which says I. Who am I? When I say I, there are two I's here. The Anatma with the Ahankara is one I, and the real I, which is the Sakshi Chaitanya Atma behind this Anatma. But what does the Vijnanamaya take itself to be? It takes itself to be the Ahankara, identifying itself with the body, mind, sense complex. Deha Indriyadishu Abhimanyate. Abhimanyate means it has got Abhimana in the Deha and Indriya as I. Bhrisham, because of the Bhranti, because of delusion, because of avidya, this Bhranti is there. Therefore, Vijnanamaya Kosha is also not the Atma. Atma is not the Vijnanamaya. That is what is going to be talked about in the next two verses, which we'll see in the next session. ॐ नन्दन्तु साधका सर्वे विनश्यन्तु विदूषकाः अवस्थाशाम्भवी मेस्तु प्रसन्नोऽस्तु गुरुः सदा सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति